We are looking at this little chart. It gives you the answers. Woo. Right? So, if we're looking at that, it has all the natural notes everywhere, right? So it says where the natural notes are just notes without a sharp or a flat, which are called accidentals. I don't know if I've ever mentioned that on this. So, this just shows, like I said, this shows you where the natural notes are, because I feel like, I mean, people watching won't be able to see this, but that poster behind you, or me, has every single note on there, and it'll call something an F sharp or a G flat, or I'm sorry, a G sharp, or, you know, like it'll mess. I think I said it right the first time, but what's called enharmonic notes. So if you're at A and you go one higher, you like A sharp. Flat is one lower, so one lower than B is B flat. You can see those are the exact same fret. They're gonna sound the same and everything. It just depends on what key you're in. It'll make more sense later, but it's a way of organizing it so you know what key you're in. So you're just like, I have these 7 notes, that's it. Otherwise, you have 12 notes total in our music system, and it makes it way difficult. Okay? So yeah, so if you were to see, like you said, F sharp popped up, maybe F sharp minor, but it was on that would be the 2nd fret right here. Okay? So all you need to do is whatever the song calls for, or whatever your progression is going to be, you just find the note and you match the appropriate shape. Okay, so we'll do a couple of these just so you can kind of see where it's good to practice these kind of in isolation. Like there's a few ways that I should say that I would practice this. One would be just to find where a chord is. So you could start with an open chord. So you'd play like a G, and you could play a G bar chord, and then the other G bar chord. Then you could do a C chord. The C bar chord, the other one. Those are all C chords. So you find the 2 bar chords based on whatever. You just so we're gonna go through it.
Okay.
Don't worry about it. Yeah. I'm just giving you a little sample of where we're going.
Okay.
Team double bar chord for sure. Screw that high string, right? Yeah.
I read that and I was like, I don't understand.
Well, yeah, that thing where I was skipping
No,
that note, right? Yeah, it's way better to do it that way most of the time, especially when you're like us and we have bigger hands. It's such I might have mentioned this the first one. That A chord, I never can do those fingers. I always do it like this with 3 fingers or just the one as a bar. There's no way to do the other one for me. It just doesn't happen.
It just doesn't happen.
Does not happen. Okay, so pick a chord, like an open chord that you know. Just name a note that pops in your head.
G.
G, there you go. Honestly, at this point, even if it, like, you want to avoid falling into the trap of doing what's comfortable all the time. So a lot of times what happens is people start to get it, and then they spend their entire time playing those chords, or they learn their first song, so they sit down to practice, and then they play what's comfortable, right? So at this point, though, you haven't really done the bar chords, so who gives a shit? Just do your thing, you know? So start with, do A. Let's do it. So this A is actually a good example because it gets this throws people off a little bit because, like we said, there's always a 6-string and 5-string version of this, but the 5-string version of this might be a little weird for you. Well, you need to prep with some coffee before we get into this. You need to stretch?
This is a strong one too.
So. Oh, the one you made? All right, so here's what we're going to do. You said A.
Yes.
So play your A chord. Ta-da! Okay. Now find where the A note is. So we're down by 0, and if we think about the A chord, you started on the 5th string, right? Like when you strumming wise, like a lot of times you want to skip string number 6 with that strum. Oh yeah. I'm not doubting what you did. Oops. I got tangled up down here and I smashed it up here. So if we're looking over at this, you were playing the A chord with the A right here, and then this note, the C sharp right there, and the E. The individual notes don't matter, but you were starting on like the 5th string, right? So if we wanted to play that 5-string bar chord version of that, because you're playing on open, you just have to find the next A on that string, which is all the way up at 12. So I'm bringing that up, but that's going to be really hard to play on that guitar. Bar chord's way up high as anything, especially on this guitar without the cutaway, right? But just to show you what you would do, I mean, you could try it too. You would bar right where you are, right? And then you would put probably this finger. You don't want to make like some sorority girl awkward peace sign. Do that. Yep. It's awkward as hell, right? Yeah, you're right. So you bar all those three with that finger. It sucks, especially where you are. Actually, that didn't sound that bad. Yeah, you're hearing most of the notes. There's a little bit of a mute there. And what's happening is you're just starting with the bar too low. Move it a little bit higher so you're starting, your fingertip should be on that string. There you go. Yeah, better. But like I said, that's the worst shape and a horrible way or position to play it in. But does that make sense? So we found the A note and we matched the shape to it. Okay. I wouldn't do that one, especially on an acoustic. What I would do though is maybe find like the 6-string A and then match that shape.
So you find the next A starting on the 6th.
Yeah, just find and most of the time you don't have to go all the way up to 12. Yeah, so the 5th fret. Oh, I kind of have the frets cut off a bit on the top there. Yeah, so 5th fret.
Wait.
So 2nd dot.
The first dot, you mean? This guitar?
No,
that
there's
one's
Is there one rubbed off on the top?
Yeah.
Oh, on the top. That's weird. I've had that guitar for like 20 years. I've never noticed that.
You never noticed they're here?
No, I knew they were up there, but I never noticed
there
that.
There isn't a 3rd one, and there isn't a 9th one. It only shows 5, 7, and 12.
Yeah, I've never noticed that. That's hilarious.
I was looking at it today. I'm like, where are the dots? I have dots here. Okay.
That's hilarious. Yeah, I've never. I've had that literally for 21 years.
Your first guitar?
It was one of the first, yeah. Or it was the first, yeah.
That's funny.
That's crazy. Anyway,
So
now that my mind has been blown.
You just do the other
So don't worry about what you said. The A is on the 5th fret.
Yeah.
So then you're gonna play this shape, starting there. If it was an A major chord, which that's what you chose, right?
Yeah.
So with that one, use 2 fingers. Yeah. It's gonna put your hand in a more relaxing position, and it's gonna make it just easier. And that it's just gonna be better all around. So with the bar, let's try this again. But just to explain this, especially for people that are brand new to this, you don't want to do the bar, especially leaning your hand this way. Okay. So your hand should never be in like an awkward. Your elbow shouldn't pop out. Using like the inside part of your finger here, like in between your first and middle, right? Never do that. You also don't really want to just go completely straight, where you're using think where your fingerprint is, because you screw yourself over, because you'll be fine for like 3 strings, and then your knuckle happens, and you've got this dip where it's all fleshy in between the knuckles, kind of like you're not going to hear any of those notes. You'll hear where your knuckle hits, and then it dies out again. So you're probably going to have like 3-4 strings muted if you just try and do it perfectly flat. You're kind of naturally doing it where you're using more of the outside of your finger. So like the part of your finger that's in between this part with your thumb, right? And if you tilt it a little bit like that, it makes that bar easier, I should say, to go across. Your thumb looks good too, but for anyone that's having issues getting the pressure, you shouldn't. At first, you kind of feel like you need to strangle the hell out of it, but it doesn't really. It doesn't have to be that way, right? So as you get comfortable with it, you will relax more and be able to play for longer and whatever. But you can just try and bar, just the 5th fret, get that to sound good, to kind of find that sweet spot where, yeah. So see, like right there, you're using more of the outside part. That's gonna work better.
Yeah. I can feel each string instead of
on your fingers. Yeah.
I'm like, and that's from watching you play so much.
Hey. There's benefits.
I do better if I can see people do it.
I learn the same way. I don't. I don't understand people that learn really well in like a classroom setting.
Mm.
Like especially like we've talked about me in high school. I used to just do all the work and then not pay any attention or go.
Yeah. Well, I learned how to draw a stick pretty quickly because I watched my dad and then my sister. Like everybody through my family. So when it was my turn, it was just like, oh, I got it.
I mean, that brings something good up because everyone's learns differently, right? So if you're more visual and you need to see that, maybe like what would work well for you is, especially with YouTube now, look at a bunch of different people that are good players and kind of see what they're doing.
Yeah.
Now, don't imitate necessarily because there's some guys out there with like the dumbest techniques that are amazing guitar players. Sometimes it's just they pick a little weird. Like I do down, they would do an up, and that's not that strange, right? Just a different way they practiced or whatever. But like I always make fun of Marty Friedman's hand. He always plays like underneath. I'll show you him later. But he's an amazing guitar player. I love his playing, and he plays underneath like this.
Okay.
I don't know how he keeps these strings. He's not quiet or whatever, but.
Right.
So I wouldn't imitate that. And, it seems super unnatural, but you can get some ideas.
Yeah.
I mean, some people learn, like I said, everyone except for maybe those 2 or 3 learn better through application than through trying to just be book smart and memorize it. I've used the example of my college classes because it started with like 40 people, and then there were like I was one of 4 at the end because people that didn't. It wasn't like it got that hard that people couldn't do it. It's just they were trying to be book smart, and even if they were like the most badass piano player or whatever, they just didn't apply it, so they couldn't keep up. Okay, so there's a couple ways that you can do this. So we just did the A. If it's helpful for you, you could also do like then the A minor. So you could go like A. You could do A minor. That sort of thing. Now the other thing about this is it might be better for you in terms of memorizing to like play the major and minor together, so you see the difference in the bar chord. Because sometimes people get jacked up where they find the note and then they play the wrong shape. So they're on the 6th string, they're still playing a 6th string bar chord, but they play minor when they should play major, and then it sounds like the beginning of a Meshuggah song. And that's actually too good. We're listening to that after. Anyway. That one? Yeah. Saturday. Yeah, maybe. So like if you're playing that A minor, or A, I should say, A minor is just taking your middle finger off. If you're playing up here, that's the A, and then if that high note that we're barring right there, right, goes down 1. But the difference between major and minor is only 1 note. Depending on what shape you're using, that note might happen more than 1 time, but there's only 1 note different between them. So what we just did, where you picked 1 chord and you find it in other spots, that's one way of playing it, or practicing at first. That can be good. But then what I would do is I would just place like a song or play a progression and try and find how to play it, and then practice what you found. Okay? So let's make up a little progression real quick just to try this out. Okay? So we're going to go D minor. I mean, I'm trying to choose chords that you might not memorize, like the open right away, just to show you that you can pretty much find anything this way. If there's, like, most chords have an open position, but if there's like a sharp or flat in it, it's not going to probably have open strings. Okay. In a lot of situations, you might do like, this is one thing that actually is kind of common, is having a bar chord shape and then maybe releasing one of the notes, so you get like a little bit more whatever. But getting ahead of myself. So let's do D minor and A minor. Okay. So what we're gonna do first of all is the first step is just to find a D that you want to play. So let's do the 5th string D. I'll give you the starting point. So on that 5th string, so the second to the bottom, right? You want to go until you find a D note. 5th, yep. So we found that 5th fret. Now, if it works well for you, but we could go ahead and just find where our starting points are going to be for all the chords. So we had D minor and A minor. So let's try it that way. Where's a close A to that D you just found? Oh, the 6th string. Yeah. Same fret, 6th string. Yeah, I just was clarifying.
The 6th one.
Yeah.
That could be a lot of things.
Yeah.
Okay, yeah.
Okay, yeah. So both of those bar chords are minor. Both of the. I thought that was your guitar making that noise.
That's what I do.
There's a. I don't know if they can hear it, but there's someone outside backing up or something. And it sounded like she just created the weirdest noise ever. Yeah. So both are on the 5th fret. Both are minor. Okay. So I just measured. How many times do you think I hit my head? Where my head is at least twice a stream. That's hilarious. All right. Okay, so 5th string, minor shape. So now you have the shapes up there.
Okay.
So
Fifth string. So then you
go to the 5th. Yeah, the 5th fret that you found for that D.
And then you do this one, right? So this one and those two.
Almost. You're kind of
Okay.
combined. You had the right shape, but you started putting it on the wrong string. This pinky always is going to be right underneath the ring finger.
Okay. Right?
If you relax your hand, it follows this kind of curve, right? So I probably said this before to you, but if your hand is curved, I don't know how well they can see it like this, but my pinky is lower, and then my first finger hangs up higher. Similar, like if you're tapping your fingers, you tend to go pinky to first. It's just more natural. But if you're putting all your fingers on one fret or something like that, you don't want to flip them because you make the muscle.
Sure.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So there's your D minor. So you can see I'll play the open one. Now they're very similar, right? Yeah. So then if we were to go to A minor, you chose the 5th fret on the 6th string, and now you're gonna play, starting there, you play the minor shape. So you were there.
Still do that, right? Like.
Yeah. So you would start there,
Or.
and then you would move that down. Because like look at the difference between that shape and the one we're going to the one right next to it.
Oh yeah. Okay.
Yeah. So what you just did was, and I'm pointing on the rather than letting people see. Yeah. You were trying to go over to this major shape.
Okay.
So we're playing the far right and then the second to last or whatever you want, the other minor shape.
So then I just need to.
Which fingers would be better? There you go. It makes your hand much more relaxed and it puts this finger in a better spot. One thing you can do is when you're barring, you can use this finger for a little more pressure if you want for that shape. I do that a lot, actually. Yeah, you'll see when I do this bar, a lot of times I kind of put my middle finger a little bit there. You don't want to put it like on top and like force your finger down kind of thing, because then you're putting extra pressure and it's going to make it much harder when you're going to probably need to use it soon, right? But if you're like here for the major, you want your finger to kind of touch or whatever feels natural. You're not using it, so that looks pretty natural for you. Yeah. So right there, your D minor, like what normally would be, that might be the acoustic part, the electric. Right? Now you're doing something a little bit differently than I do. That's not a big deal, but just to bring this up because it might be an issue that people need to pay attention to. So just tune out. When you're barring, regardless of whether you're doing the 5 or the 6, your finger's kind of in the same spot. So you are hitting the 6th string even when you're doing the 5-string bar chord. It doesn't matter. Like some people like to leave it there. So like when you just switched, you left the bar where it was and went. Right? What I do is I kind of reposition my whole hand. Like move it. In a lot of situations, I'll do that. But here's the thing: if it's more comfortable to bar like you are, just do that. Well, it's a consistency thing. Sometimes a lot of times you were just kind of leaving it, and it's like I said, it's not a big deal because it actually sounds good and it's part of the chord. It just makes it sound bigger. So you have more thicker, right? And so especially if you were playing more electric stuff or like distortion, You know, sounds thicker than.
Well, no, I'm glad you brought that up.
It wasn't every time. Like I said, it was a consistency thing. It's because it's new. You haven't gotten the muscle memory to know where the sweet spot is, or know just in general what you like, right? That'll come by doing progressions. I just chose just 2 random chords. So I'm putting you on the spot again. You choose 2 random chords. Any 2.
E and C.
Okay.
E.
E.
That's weird.
Oh, I mean, you
Minor
might.
and C maybe.
Okay. I mean, if you were doing E and C, it would probably, depending on what key you're in, most of the time it would break the key, but it doesn't really matter. I mean, if we had, see how it sounds a little bit like it's dramatic. So you might play that. I think that sounds cool, but you might play that and be like, because it is really dramatic, it might not just sound that great to you. So if that's, I mean, you test it with an open chord real quick and say, which one do I like better? Do I like or E minor? Whichever. I think they both sound cool. But you can always test it out. But sometimes when you just choose randomly, like if you were doing an E, it would be more common to have a C sharp major afterwards.
Okay.
Or I'm sorry, C sharp minor afterwards, not major. So instead of C major, it would be the C sharp minor. So that would be like, that gets a little bit more predictable. So.
So if you have like an open chord like E,
Mm-hmm. You can certainly use it.
is it more common to have a minor chord along with it to like balance everything out?
You're going to have a combination of major and minor chords in most situations. If you're playing like blues, it can be one or the other. Like if you're playing a minor blues, it's only going to be minor chords kind of thing. Most of the time you have some sort of combination. You don't have to necessarily balance it out right away, but you can always think like if I play a major chord, it's going to start happy because it's major, and then if I put a minor after it, it might mellow out the mood more than just being like if you went E to A. That's something you would never hear me play, right? I might do E minor, a little happy for a second, but you gotta be careful. Yeah, no, it's bad for your health.
I think it's funny that when you play the major, you're like,
Because I'm mocking it.
okay.
Major keys to me are pretty boring. They, if you're playing, there's a reason for it. Not even just because I like the sadder sounding stuff anyway. But if you're playing in a major key, you have less things that you can commonly switch to, like to break the rules and stuff. If you're playing in minor, you have harmonic minor, which is a variation of it. You have melodic minor potentially. You have a lot more options of chord progressions that are dramatic and spooky, especially. But they don't have to be spooky, but I like those. Me gusta. Okay, so you chose. What did you want to do? E? You want to do like the open E to a bar chord, or do you want to stick with just bar chords? It's up to you. Bar chord, just sticking with bar chords will be a little bit easier.
Well, let's go easy.
All right. So you have E minor then?
Yeah.
Okay, and C. Okay, so E. Let's go. Let's find our note. Let's just find. Do you want to? Did it work or feel like it worked well to find both your starting points and then find the shapes, or do you want to just try and find the first shape and then the second one?
Yeah.
Okay, let's try that. So you obviously, like you said, you have the open E minor, right? Which you could use, and a lot of times you probably would because it sounds bigger, right? A lot of times you don't really want to go from like a something big to going to like something more small necessarily, but so you could use the open. What if you wanted to do the bar chord, let's say?
Seventh.
Yep, 7th fret.
Fifth string.
Yep, so 5th string, that minor shape.
So then you just do two. Oh, down here though.
Remember what shape you're on. You're starting on the 5th string.
Right. Okay.
Yep. So one thing to bring up, I think it's probably going to be a good habit for you to do the bar part first.
Yeah,
So bar on that 7, and then add those other. Yep, you're right. Add those fingers. Yeah. It's going to be easier to transition to the bar than to the other notes and make the bar sound. Because like here, I'll show you the difference. If you were to go bar first, you get that, which sounds pretty neat. If you go,
then you're good.
right? It sounds like it doesn't sound necessarily bad in this situation, but right, some of it might sound a little gross. But yeah, bar first, and then adding the others, it tends to be much easier. And but anyway,
Yeah.
there's our first chord, right?
Mhm.
So we're going from that E minor to C. Where is a close C then on our cheat sheet to the one you were just playing?
I mean, we could go to the 8th.
Mm-hmm.
No. Yeah.
You're on 7.
Yeah.
8's real close.
Alright.
Yep. So then, I guess I forgot to switch over. It's going to be easier when you don't have to switch back and forth between screens.
Yeah, I was like, wait, what do I do now?
Yeah, so if we're looking at, and you're playing major, starting on the 6th string. So you play the first shape, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yep.
Oh boy.
They're tricky. But yeah, so if you have, so you're going, I'm sorry, you're doing E minor. Right? Now here, if you wanted, like most of the time, if you started here, that would be the C that you're going to play.
Uh-huh.
It's close, it sounds good, they're fairly balanced, right? Let's just, as the other way you could play it, we could obviously use the 5-string shape of the major, right? And if we were to do that, just to show you real quick, you don't have to do it, but you would go from the 7th fret down to the C on the 3rd fret. So you'd have, your version was the other one. They sound they're pretty much the same, right? Now, the only reason you might want to do that one, which is harder, both, just to play the shape and transition-wise, you might want to do that if you want like a slide sort of effect. Like if you want something a little bit more, or but otherwise, just do it close. Is that making more sense then? Like how they